4 is idioms. Idioms. What is an idiom? By the way, this is page 43 of the writing manual. Page 43 of the writing manual. What is an idiom? An idiom is a common phrasing in English, or really any language. Every language has its own idioms. Idioms, as it says right here, you might want to highlight this. Idioms dictate the way that certain words have to be paired. They are common phrasings. I'm going to go ahead and give you an example of an idiom in English. I will preface this by saying these are not really the idioms that will be tested on the SAT, but for instance, something like get in shape. If you look very literally at the three words and how they are paired, get in shape doesn't actually mean what we as English speakers know it to mean. We know that get in shape means to exercise or to take care of oneself. However, if a foreigner who was not common with English and English's idioms were to look at get in shape, they would be very confused by those three words paired together. A foreigner might very well think that if you say that you want to get in shape, that you want to become a triangle or a square or perhaps a circle. That's what get in shape literally would mean to somebody who's not familiar with English idioms. So again, an idiom is generally defined as something that is specific to a language, that sort of pairs words together and creates a meaning that is only obvious to people who are familiar with the language and how the particular phrase is used in the language. On the SAT, however, you're not going to be tested on these kinds of idioms. So you actually don't really need to worry about understanding what all of the idioms mean. What you're mostly going to be tested on is the correct pairing of certain kinds of words. And examples 1 and 2 will give you a good hint as to what SAT idioms will look like. So pause the video, do examples 1 and 2, and then rejoin us. In example 1, we have according with the directions, blah, blah, blah. This is not the correct idiom. In English, we do not say according with the directions. We say according to the directions. Why is that? Well, the answer is simply that that's just not what we say in English. We don't say according with, we say according to. In example number 2, we have the border crossing has been closed for many months, thus preventing refugees to receive food supplies. Well, again, in English, we don't say prevent to receive. We say prevent from receiving. Prevent to receive is not the correct idiom. The correct idiom is we prevent someone from doing something. Now, again, the tricky thing about idioms is if somebody were to say, well, why can't I say prevent to receive? Your answer would simply be that's just not the way that we say that particular idiom. So on the SAT, I know that we say in many other rules that you cannot rely on your ear. Generally, you are not supposed to be relying on your ear, but on idioms, really the only way to handle idioms is to use your ear. As it says right here, most of the idiom errors, in fact, pretty much all of the idiom errors on the test can only be detected by using your ears. Now, before we jump into the specific types of idioms or the specific tip-off clues for idioms, I will tell you this. The way to get better at idioms, there's 2 or 3 ways that you can help yourself if idioms tend to be problematic for you. 1, memorize all of the idioms that are in this manual. These have all been drawn from past tests, which means that they very likely could appear on future tests. You should know, however, that there are thousands and thousands of idioms in the English language. meaning I cannot possibly cover all of the idioms that the test maker may throw at you, but memorizing the ones in the manual, being familiar with them, will be a good start. The second thing that you can do for yourself is you can read. Unfortunately, you will most likely also need a time machine so that you can go back to when you were in second or third grade and start reading then. But it's never too late to start reading as much as humanly possible, and the more you read, the more you do become familiar with idioms, and idiomatic errors will become easier to spot. And then the third thing that you can do is this little trick, but it is very difficult, and it does not always work. I shouldn't say it's very difficult. It's not difficult. It's simply that this technique, like I said, it does not work for all students. But one of the things that you can do is you can make your own sentence with the thing that you think may be idiomatic. So for instance, if I'm going to use a really simple example. Let's say that you were to see, I am scared with spiders. Let's say that you were to see this on the test and that with was underlined. I am scared with spiders. Let's say this was answer choice A. What you can do is put the sentence that they give you aside and make your own sentence with the word, usually the word right before the thing that you think might be unidiomatic. You're sitting here saying, well, I am scared with spiders sounds a little bit weird. So what you can do is say in your head something that scares you. So for instance, you would say in your head very quickly without thinking about it. That's the key to this little technique. You have to do this quickly, and you have to really ignore what ETS has given you. You have to put this aside, and you have to say something like, I am, and again, you would not write this out. You would just say it in your head. I am scared of heights. And usually what will happen, aside from spelling heights incorrectly like I just did, what will happen is the correct idiom will just sort of roll off your tongue. In a lot of situations, that's what will happen. I am, oops, there's also supposed to be a D there. I am scared of heights. A lot of times when you put the original sentence that the test maker has given you aside and you make your own sentence, because you are familiar with the language, whether you know it or not, you will come up with the right idiom. So that's really the only hint that I can give you on idiom questions to make these slightly easier. Again, put the sentence they give you aside, make your own sentence, usually with the word right before the thing you think is unidiomatic, and sometimes the correct idiom will just roll off of your tongue or out of your brain. Now, how do we recognize idiom errors? Well, one is with underlined prepositions. So go ahead and write down underlined prepositions. This is our first tip-off clue. Remember what the prepositions are. We did go over these in some previous rules, namely subject-verb agreement, if you've done that rule. Prepositions of, in, to, for, by, with, about, on. Those are some of the more common ones that you're going to see on the SAT, especially when idioms are being tested. So if you see an underlined preposition, you might want to add check to ensure it is idiomatic. In other words, check to make sure that the preposition that is used creates good, solid phrasing. So in example 3, again, pause the video and do example 3 and then rejoin us. So in example 3, we have the coyote able to adapt for extremely diverse ecological settings, ... This preposition is not the idiomatic preposition for this particular phrasing. We do not say somebody or something is able to adapt for something else. We say someone or something is able to adapt to something else. So the coyote able to adapt to extremely diverse settings, ... So again, the correct preposition there idiomatically is to and not for. On the next page, we have a bunch of examples. What you are going to do is look at the underlined preposition. That's your tip-off clue. You are going to ask yourself if that preposition sounds correct. Again, that's pretty much the only way you can do idioms, is by asking yourself if something sounds correct. Ask yourself if the underlined preposition sounds correct. If it is, and some of these are correct, so you will be leaving some of these alone. If the preposition is correct, leave it alone. If it is not, change it to what you think the preposition needs to be changed to. Go ahead and do these examples on your own right now. Okay, so number 1, do you conform with society's demands? Is with correct? No, it is not. The question should be, do you conform to society's demands? You conform to something. Brian has a mistrust for authority figures. For is not the idiomatic preposition here. This should be mistrust of. You have a mistrust of something. The result is inconsistent to your data. No, the result is inconsistent with your data. To is not the appropriate or idiomatic preposition here. You should use with. Inconsistent with. He is considered irresponsible by his friends. This one is correct. By the way, if you are missing any of these, I would be drawing a huge X through the example number that you miss, so that when you go back and review the manual, you can very clearly see the idioms that you have missed. In fact, I would be doing this X technique throughout the entire manual so that you draw attention to the examples that you are missing, and when you review the manual, you pay a little bit more attention to the ones that you did miss. So he is considered irresponsible by his friends is correct. Someone is considered something by others. We are not familiar with his policies, also correct. You are or are not familiar with something. Number 6, many people do get by here, but really this with should be in. If you said test succeeded by earning the top spot, that's not completely incorrect, but for reasons that I will not get into right now, in is the better preposition here. She succeeded in doing something. You succeed in doing something. Griffin was an advocate to. No, you are not an advocate to something. You are an advocate for or of. Actually, either of the prepositions for or of would work here. Number 8, the lawyer advocated for the elderly patients. This for is absolutely correct. Notice that advocate here is a noun. Advocate here is a verb. Noun and verb. If you have a noun, if you're using advocate as a noun, the preposition can be either for or of. If you are using the advocate as a verb, then the preposition needs to be for. They could not agree on a solution. That is perfectly correct. Agree on something. You never agreed to your brother. No, that is not correct. You do not agree to a person. You agree with a person. So agree is one of those words, and there are many of these words where you can use multiple prepositions after them. For instance, you can sit in a chair or on a chair, and it just depends on the context and the meaning that you want to convey. So you can agree on something. You can also agree with someone. Number 11, sort of a difficult one. Sarah's commentary about the budget. No, you do not give a commentary about, you give a commentary on something. So Sarah's commentary on the budget. I wonder why he is so intolerant. This is number 12. Intolerant to. No, you are not intolerant to something or someone. You are intolerant of someone or something. So number 12, the correct preposition would be of. Those are the prepositional idiom examples. We need to talk about the next kind of idiom error on the test. This is page 45 in the manual. The gerund infinitive flip idioms. So let's take a look at example 13. Go ahead and read through that and see if anything needs to be corrected. So in number 13, we have the dog is not capable to pull the sled up such a steep hill. Aw, poor dog. This to pull, this infinitive, which we'll talk about the definitions of gerunds and infinitives in one moment. This infinitive to pull is not correct here. You do not say that someone is capable to do something. You say that someone is or is not capable of doing something. So in this case, we should be using this ing form, pulling. So the dog is not capable of pulling the sled, not the dog is not capable to pull the sled. So let's talk about these tip-off clues, these gerunds and infinitives. I apologize for the strange terminology here, but there's really no other way to term these effectively or succinctly. So a gerund, what you're going to write down is -ing / noun form of a verb. Let's go ahead and get these written down, and then I'll go into some slightly more detail for those of you that are still a little confused. And then the infinitive is the unformed / to form of a verb. So here is a really simple example. If you think about the verb swim, okay, you can put swim into the very simple infinitive form, to swim. So notice that's simply the unformed version of swim with a to in front of it. This would be the infinitive. And then we can also make swim, the verb swim, into a noun by adding a ming, an M, an I, an N, and a G. This would be the gerund. Now the gerund would be used in an example such as, or can be shown in an example such as, swimming is fun. Notice what swimming is in this sentence. It is the subject of the sentence. Therefore, it is a noun. Subjects are always persons or people, things, or places. They are always nouns. So this swimming is functioning as a noun in this sentence. It is a thing. It is an activity, and it is what is fun. So again, verbs can be put into gerund form by adding an ing and possibly another letter, as happens with swim. And to swim is the infinitive form. It is the completely unformed version of the verb. If you see a gerund or an infinitive, those are your tip-off clues. If you see one of those two things, what you need to do is ask yourself if everything sounds okay. If not everything sounds okay, you may need to change the gerund to the infinitive or the infinitive to the gerund. In the following examples, 14 through 19, you're going to do the same thing that you did on the previous page. You're going to ask yourself if the underlined word sounds correct, and these are all going to be gerunds or infinitives. If everything sounds correct, leave the example alone. If not, cross off the incorrect phrase and write a correction. Go ahead and do 14 through 19 now. We will now go through 14 through 19. If you haven't finished, obviously pause the video again. He studied hard in the hope to earn an A. No, we do not want the infinitive here. We want the gerund. You study hard in the hope of doing something. In this case, we would say of earning an A. You do something in the hope of doing something. CDs are on the verge to disappear. No, things are not on the verge to disappear. Things are on the verge of disappearing. So this is a case, both of these cases, you need to change the infinitive to the gerund. Now in example 16, we have a gerund, we have an ing word, and we have to ask ourselves if that gerund sounds okay, or if possibly we need the infinitive. And indeed, we do need the infinitive here. You do not have a tendency of doing something, you have a tendency to do something. In this case, you have a tendency to eat too quickly. So there we needed the infinitive rather than the gerund. Your friends do not accuse you of being. Do you accuse someone of being or of doing something? The answer is yes, you absolutely do. Accuse you of being is perfectly correct. The gerund is fine there. Example 18, we use cameras in the monitoring of. No, we use cameras to monitor. Now, some students have pointed out that this is not really an idiomatic error. It is more of just a clunkiness or wordiness error, and indeed I actually tend to agree with them, but let's ignore that and move on to number 19. Silas suggested to revise my essay. No, you do not suggest to do something, you suggest doing something. So this is a case where we simply need revising. We do not need the infinitive there, we need the ing form of the verb. Silas suggested revising my essay for a third time. Folks, that is it for idioms. Once again, just to review really quickly, remember what an idiom is. It is simply a common phrasing in the language. What you need to concern yourself with on the SAT are prepositional idioms. In other words, whenever you see a preposition underlined, you have to make sure that the correct preposition is being used. When you see a gerund or an infinitive underlined, these are your other type of idioms on the SAT. When you see an ing word, when you see a to plus a verb, a gerund or infinitive, again, you need to ensure that everything is idiomatic. That is all for idioms. Make sure you review these idioms over and over and over again. Try to memorize as many of them as possible. Open up a book and start reading as much as possible. That will also help you with idioms. And that is all. See you in the next rule.